Arsenal have just drawn 3-3 with Southampton in the most dramatic fashion imaginable. For the neutral fan like myself, that was as breathtaking, spellbinding, and jaw-dropping a game as I've ever seen in the Premier League for a long time. Credit to both Arsenal and Southampton because that was a great advertisement for the quality of the Premier League, because let's not forget that was bottom of the table versus league leaders in that game. But now that I've caught my breath a little, I have to say that that's a heartbreaking draw for you Arsenal fans because you guys deserve to win that game. And despite being a United fan myself, I was rooting for you guys to win that game and to win the title this year because the last thing I want is for Man City to win 3 in a row and to win a treble this year because they could win the Champions League and they could win the FA Cup. Despite the disappointment, I still think there are massive positives for Arsenal from this game, but the game overall was defined by the defensive mistakes by Aaron Ramsdale and Alexander Zinchenko in key moments. So stay tuned till the end of the video because we have lots to talk about. As always, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy, and don't forget to turn on all notifications to never miss out on content just like this. So we're going to kick things off by talking about Mikel Arteta's tactics in possession and Southampton's tactics out of possession because that's where most of the damage was done for Arsenal. So Arsenal started in the 4-3-3 that you see here but played in a 2-3-2-3 that looked like this. In this shape, you had Gabriel Jesus playing mostly between the two center backs of Southampton and Martinelli and Saka both high and wide on either flank. Then you had Vieira and Odegaard playing in the inside spaces as either 8s or 10s on both sides, and you had a defensive midfield 3 of Zinchenko, Partey and Ben White, with Gabriel and Holding playing as the two center backs just in behind them. Now there are several interesting in-game tactics that Arteta deployed while Southampton were defending deep in their own half, and they are as follows. You had Gabriel Jesus dropping in between Vieira and Odegaard to pull one or both of the Southampton centre backs out of position to make room for Saka and Martinelli to run into the box into these areas. At the same time, you had Vieira and Odegaard occupying wider positions towards the edge of the box to provide that option for Saka and Martinelli to recycle the ball into these areas. And those two movements would allow Zinchenko and Ben White to push forward in these inside spaces to come into these areas here at the edge of the box to provide the creativity inside the box. And as Jesus joined the attack, you had Partey come a little bit further forward and both center backs push forward a bit as well. So with these movements, especially with Southampton holding deep, Arsenal's formation looked more like a 2-1-4-3 with basically 7 attacking players in and around the box. So Mikel Arteta was fully prepared in this game for Southampton to come and sit deep and try to counterattack. And his goal was very much to dominate possession to slice through that deep defensive line with the front 6 or 7 attacking players that you see here. But perhaps what he didn't account for as much was Southampton's willingness to press high from the start, and that Aaron Ramsdale would make a crucial mistake within the first minute of the game. So let's talk about Southampton's game plan by discussing the footage from that first goal. So Southampton's game plan was clear from the start. Put some early pressure on Arsenal's backline and try and force a mistake. And this wasn't a tactic based on Southampton being a world-class high-pressing team. It was based purely on the occasion and what's at stake in this game. They knew that Arsenal were desperate to get the 3 points to stay ahead of City in the title race, and after they've already dropped 2 2-goal leads against Liverpool and West Ham, you could sense the fear and nervousness in the crowd and the players. And all of those fears came true as soon as Aaron Ramsdale made that mistake in the first minute. So let's look at this clip and analyze Southampton's press and what their tactics were. We start with Gabriel on the ball at left back, and you can kind of see Southampton's pressing shape here in that 4-4-2. You have the 2 up front and the 4 in midfield, and their main goal was to make it very difficult on Arsenal's main on-ball decision makers in Zinchenko, Partey and Odegaard. As Gabriel plays the ball back to Ramsdale, you can see Walcott and Alcaraz shifting towards the center to mark the 2 central passing lanes in front of Ramsdale, primarily to stop the ball from getting into Zinchenko and Odegaard over here. As Ramsdale takes a few seconds to assess his passing options, this is what he sees in front of him. The front 6 of Southampton are kind of boxing out the middle 3 of Partey, Zinchenko and Odegaard, which means there are at least 2 Southampton players available per Arsenal player in this area to press them in case the ball goes towards them. And let me remind you guys once again, Ramsdale has already taken a few seconds to get a good view of what's ahead of him, which is more than enough for someone of his quality to understand which pass is on and which one isn't. As we play on, Ramsdale spends a few more seconds on the ball, but look at the movement that Zinchenko makes. He slowly moves to get in between Walcott and Alcaraz, and you can kind of see Alcaraz turning around to take a look at where Zinchenko is. Now Ramsdale is about to play that pass, and Zinchenko is fully in between Walcott and Alcaraz at this point, and he's kind of gesturing to Ramsdale. You can kind of see his hands down towards his feet to feed him the ball. And both the Arsenal players are thinking, if we can beat this first line of press, Zinchenko is in acres of space in midfield, and with his quality on the ball, he can easily find Odegaard or Vieira or even one of the wingers straight up, which makes it a very easy break onto Southampton, especially because they have these 6 players held so high. And they're absolutely right to think that, because this is what they practice in training, to play out from these situations at the back. But here's the problem. Ramsdale's pass has to have the perfect weight of pass into Zinchenko. If it's too heavy, one of these 2 Southampton players can press Zinchenko, win the ball back and create a chance. And if it's too weak, either Walcott or Alcaraz win the ball back and create the chance like Alcaraz did. And sure, Ramsdale is one of the best ball-playing goalkeepers in the Premier League, and he has the skill to pull this off with the perfect pass. But let's zoom out for a second and talk about the atmosphere pre-kickoff. The Arsenal players, fans, and everyone that doesn't want Man City to win the league are anxious and nervous. Everyone wants to get to the final whistle with an easy, comfortable win, and some Arsenal fans are probably even thinking about this game as a way to improve their goal difference in case that comes into play. The last thing you want to do in the first minute of a game like this is take unnecessary risks. And for Zinchenko to ask for this pass in this area, and for Ramsdale to decide to play this pass and underhit it, is completely unnecessary. He can easily go to Gabriel or Holding on either side and build up the play that way. But of course, he underhits the pass and gives it away to Alcaraz, who doesn't waste this golden opportunity and puts Southampton 1-0 up. Look, some of you may be wondering why I'm blaming Zinchenko here, and it's because they're both involved in the decision-making process. Zinchenko is making himself available in a dangerous area, and he's asking for the ball through a dangerous channel when he could easily understand the moment and ask Ramsdale to play it wide. And sure, Ramsdale does play it short, but it never happens if Zinchenko doesn't make himself available and ask for the pass. And look, I'm speaking from very recent experience, because just yesterday, United conceded a very similar opening goal against Sevilla. Maguire asked for the ball in almost the same exact area with 3 Sevilla forwards surrounding him. De Gea plays it to him, Maguire loses the ball, and Sevilla score. And as much as I'd love to blame just my keeper or just Maguire for that mistake, the blame is equally shared between those two, just like Zinchenko and Ramsdale deserve here. And obviously, there were defensive mistakes for all 3 goals. For the second goal, Vieira doesn't show himself as a passing option to Saka and Partey in midfield. And then Zinchenko and Holding don't get tight enough to Alcaraz when he's driving forward, because the only way Southampton scored that second goal is by that pass in behind to Walcott. And for the third goal, Zinchenko completely loses Kaleta-Char on the back post, and it's a free header for him. But this first goal and this mistake by both Ramsdale and Zinchenko sets the tone for the rest of the game. Southampton get confidence to press and play on the counterattack, and Arsenal just start to panic in the middle and the final third, which led to the second goal as we described. But despite the terrible start and the 3 defensive mistakes, Arsenal came back to score 3 crucial goals, and in those last 8 minutes of added time, looked like they were going to score the 4th. So let's talk about Arsenal's comeback and where they go from here. Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli, and Trossard deserve massive credit for their efforts in this game. Honestly, you guys as Arsenal fans are lucky to have such talented young players who also fight for the badge, because you see a lot of young players that come through who have absolute bags of talent, but they don't always seem like they want it bad enough. And boy, did the Arsenal players want this win in that second half after going down 3-1. Arsenal had 74% possession for the game, but I think for that last 20 minutes, they must have had 85 to 90% of the ball. And they were very, very impressive in that period. So many close chances to score that almost went in. And I was particularly impressed by Leandro Trossard off the bench, because this guy will probably go down as the signing of the season, even if Arsenal finished second, because he's just so damn good. And they got him for 27 million. That nutmeg pass he played on Ward-Prowse in the build-up to the Saka goal was absolutely ridiculous. And the way he danced through 2 or 3 Southampton players at the edge of the box and took that shot off his left foot that hit the post was also insane. From watching those last 30 minutes or so, three things are very clear to me. Arsenal are and have been the best team in the league this season. And even if they lose out to City, they have played the best football through the 38 games. The second thing that stood out to me is that Mikel Arteta is turning into one of the best coaches in Europe right in front of our very eyes. I think he'll be the best for the next 5, 10, maybe even 15 years because he's doing this with a very, very young team, which tells me that he knows how to connect on a deeply personal level by focusing on motivation. He's not relying on fear as a motivator, and that's completely different to how managers in the past have succeeded. And the third thing that stood out to me is that Arsenal need to invest heavily in this squad in the summer because you can't have a massive drop-off when someone like Granit Xhaka is out due to illness. You need a backup to Saka on the right wing, another top quality fullback, and another starting midfielder. Because if you don't invest heavily, Man City will keep pulling ahead by investing tons of money, and other teams like United, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Spurs will close the gap behind you. With 6 games to go, Arsenal can now get a maximum of 93 points, and City, with 8 games to go, can get a maximum of 94 points. So that game at the Etihad is pretty much the final title decider for both teams. If Arsenal go and win it, City can only get to 91 points, and Arsenal have it in their hands to just win their remaining games and lift the trophy. If City win that game, Arsenal can only get to 90 points, and City have a 4-point cushion on Arsenal. Looks like this title race is going down to the final day of the season, and to be honest, Arsenal have some tough games ahead of them after that City game with Newcastle away and Brighton at home. So it really is squeaky bum time for Mikel Arteta, and you can sure that I'll be glued to my screen till May 28th when Arsenal play their final game against Wolves. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.